So today I'm going to tell you about vaccination certificates. Consent forms, they're called. No, seriously, back in the 1960s, in the early 1960s, about 1962, there was a little yellow booklet about this big and this high. It was about 20 pages long, the same size as a bank book at the time, or maybe a passport. And inside were the names of the things that you had been vaccinated against, plus the date, and the person's initials that gave it to you. Maybe a signature, I forget that part, because I was, after all, a kid. And at the front of the thing, it said immunization certificate, I think. And then it was my name underneath that. It was basically the only piece of ID I ever saw about myself, except a baptismal certificate, until I was about 15, you know. Anyway, so I'm a kid, and I realize what the thing is for, and I get a little better idea of this as I get older, because, you know, you grow up, and your mom, my mom anyway, she kept really good track of stuff. She had a really good filing system, and one of those files was called My Name Personal. Okay, cool. So I could go into the files, pull it out, and I would find all the sorts of things that she was keeping track of for me. Cool. Good filing. Well, you know, Mom got to be 90-something, and the filing system was kind of falling apart. Well, you know, whatever. I still have it, by the way, the filing system. I'm not sure about the vaccination certificate. I might have given it the check, although I probably should have held on to it for the sake of a demo to our illustrious premier. Seriously, the consent form is mainly a disclaimer saying, yes, you can do it to me, and no, you don't have to worry about these conditions with me. Like, for example, have you ever had a reaction to an injection? This is important stuff for someone who's going to give you it, because, like, some people actually do have very serious responses to certain things. Like, I know this young woman who, if she eats a banana or an egg or a potato, it'll kill her, right? This is not good stuff. So, for people like this, there are certain things in vaccines that she has to be very, very careful of, or they'll kill her. So, very important to know that sort of stuff. Anyway, back to the point here, the forms. This is great. So, I get the form out because my wife has reached that point in eligibility for vaccination. Yeah! Me, no, I'm a little younger, you know. Anyways, older women. She gets her stuff, and I get on the phone, actually, and I phone in. I say, hi, I'd like an appointment, etc., and so on. And they say, okay, great, here you go. This is the time and the date and the place. Okay, it's all taken care of. The next thing is, make sure you fill in your consent form before you come. And so I thought, oh, okay, fine, I'll do that. So I just did what everybody does. I opened up the consent form, pressed Control P, and whoosh, out it came. 2 pages. Okay, I'm happy with that. I hand it over to my wife, who has been one of the world's finest administrators in her life. That's what she's done. And she's brilliant at it. She knows every trick in the book and every hole in the book, because she's seen some real garbage. So, she gets the form and says, print this double-sided, and hands it back to me. Oh, okay. Well, I can do that because I've got the right equipment. Not everybody does, and frankly, not everybody even knows how. So, I do the double-sided printing and hand it back to her again. Then, think about this. You know, a friend of mine, her name is Nancy, used to be a nurse, and she sent me a really early copy of this consent form. And I looked at the form on the screen again. It's legal length. Okay, those of you who know what legal length paper is, put your hand up. Okay, so 1 in 10 of you did. And what that means is it's 14 inches long, which is 3 inches longer. You don't even know what an inch is, do you? than the standard piece of paper. So a standard piece of paper, this is what this is. And let's see if I stand back far enough. That's from there to there is 11 inches. Okay, it's about the height of my head plus an inch. And from side to side, that is 8.5. Now the width is pretty standard for most paper. So, cool, right? So, I get the stuff, I fill it, I give her this double-sided thing, unlike everybody else who's going to do exactly what I did. And by the way, I was in the computer business for 20 years. I know everything there is about every size of paper you can put in a printer because I've had to make them work. And you know what? Even I didn't see this. So here she is. She fills it in and then says, spot the deliberate mistake. So Here's a sample of partially filled in COVID-19 vaccine consent form. As you can see at the top, the first is the last name of the person, and then the given name, and then there's the other information about them and all the things that they may or may not be applicable. And then their consent to be vaccinated at the bottom. Very good, right? Actually, an excellent form. Now, this is the part that used to be on the other half of the legal form, but it's now on a second page, and it looks like this. Now you can see the first thing at the top says clinic location, and then underneath that, importantly down here, vaccine. You notice that there's two boxes. That's in case you're going to get one of the RNA vaccines from either Pfizer, BioNTech, or I forget the other name right now, but you know the one. So that's what that looks like. Now, if you're running out of ink, your consent form's going to look a little sloppy. You can see there was a big white line in the middle of mine. Did you get the deliberate mistake? No, I bet you didn't. I'll show it to you again. See if you can catch the deliberate mistake. It's as obvious as all get out. Okay. There's no name on the top of page 2. Do you think that everybody at home who gets their 2 pages is going to actually staple them together? I don't. Because I know people. Also, do you think that Brian Pallister is going to have put his people set up with staplers? Oh no, that would be way too much like sense. Why do I think this? Well, about 3 years ago, Barney decided that he was going to, do some construction. It was on the books and he kind of had to. Well, so as he sat pondering webs and nastiness in his office, he thought, how can I make this cheap? I need to put in an overpass in a very busy part of road where people are regularly killed. Can I put in an overpass or can I do it some other way? And of course, he came to the conclusion that he would put in a gigantic roundabout in the middle of the Trans-Canada Highway. What an idiot. I don't know how many of you have ever been on roundabouts, but I lived in a different city as a child, and it had a huge roundabout in one part of it on the major highway. And as a kid, I loved the roundabout. My dad would be driving along, we'd go zipping along on the highway, then we'd get to the roundabout, right? Roundabouts and highways, these do not mix. They do not. One of the best parts for me, though, as a kid was feeling like I'm on the merry-go-round, because we'd get stuck in the roundabout, and you go around and around and around and around, and it was huge. So I didn't take a short time to do this. So I'd be sitting there looking out the window thinking, wow, this is great, we're on the roundabout. And finally my parents, whoever was driving, would lose their mind. Take a chance and right through. Hope to God we didn't all die. Well, I'm still here, so that didn't happen. Or maybe they were much better drivers than I'm giving them credit for, but I got to tell you, big roundabouts, highways, terrible idea. Absolutely terrible. Shortly after that, they did invent this thing, by the way, called the overpass. So, anyway, I'm at this engineering consultation, okay, it's public consultation about what's happened. A consulting engineer who makes roads for a living has been hired to design Brian's roundabout. I think we should give it a name. We'll call it Barney's Roundabout. And I go up to the thing. I'm looking at diagrams as I go around, and I'm like, the hell is this? Are you out of your mind? I mean, this isn't even a good idea in a residential place. I mean, I know the guys who are truck drivers who just like nothing better than to drive right over the things because they can't make it around them. So I think, I wonder how big it is. Will the trucks get around it properly? Because there's a lot of trucks on the Trans-Canada Highway, I'll tell you. And so I asked the consulting engineer who's standing there pointing to the diagram, this is the roundabout. I said, what's the diameter of the roundabout? I don't know. I said, well, you did the design, right? And they're like, well, yes. And I said, so how wide is it? From one side of the circle to the next? Well, I don't know. Well, who does? Well, someone at the office will know. Well, phone someone at the office and get an answer. You're here to consult with us on a public basis. Let's get some facts into this, right? Well, they're kind of busy at the office, Does this sound like a public consultation to you, or does this sound like an excuse to try to pacify me with a bunch of garbage? Probably the latter, right? So I wander my way around the room asking questions and getting non-answers, and finally I get to the end. I get my form. Yes, there was a form in this one too. Yeah. And they say, please tell us what you think of the roundabout. So I sit down and I give them my background and what I know about roundabouts and what I think that they are good for and where they don't work at all, which is, by the way, everywhere. If you're at a horse and cart, it's great. But when you're in a semi doing 100 and you have to slow down to 30 going around a roundabout, you might as well shoot yourself in the head. Half of them are going to wind up in the ditch at first. So, here we are. I get to the end. I filled in my form and I run out of paper. I need another one. So I get a second page. And I go back in and I continue to fill in my form studiously. And I finish. And I go to the front door and there's a young woman who's very polite and very nice. Like, she's really good. She welcomed me very, very effectively. And then I said, I'd like to give you my form. And she said, thank you. And I said, do you have a stapler? And she's like, a what? I said, a stapler, you know. And she's like, oh, I don't know. And I said, well, surely to God you have one. You're the one who takes the forms. No. And I said, well, it must be one in the building somewhere. And she's like, I know, I'll find out. And she takes off. Nice kid. As people are coming along, I'm telling them, put your form there. Well, she comes back eventually. And I said, and? She's like, not a stapler in the entire building that I could find. I'm so sorry. And I'm like, no, that's okay. You know, like, it's your business. It's your call. And she's like, what do you mean? I said, you guys are in charge of this, not me. I'm just some guy off the street that you don't even know. And she's like, oh, okay, well. So I handed her my 2 pages, and she took the edges, and she folded them over twice, and, you know, really flattened them. Now, I have to say, this used to be a technique that was used by my grade 4 teacher with foolscap. And she did this because she had 30 kids that she was responsible for at any given day. And you know what? If the paper let go, and we didn't have any staples, no problem. She could read our handwriting and put it together. There was only 30 of us. Not 500,000 or 1 million. So, thank you, Brian, for this delightful form, which has no name at the top. And even if I get to keep it and bring it home, which seems exceedingly unlikely, I still won't know the difference between mine and my wife's. Unless, of course, I'm smart enough to put my name on the top. It would have been better, though, if you'd put a space in, don't you think? Or wouldn't it have just been simpler to have had a vaccination certificate like they had in 1962? My name's Patrick Stewart. I just love poking holes in things. And I gotta tell you, the Conservative Party, it's just being run by morons. Stop voting for them before they accidentally hang you. I never vote Conservative, and you shouldn't either.